Hi, everyone. Welcome to By the Horns. Ricky's not here today, but I am joined by the Honorable Kgothatso from Exonumia, who's trying to educate 1 billion people across Africa about Bitcoin. And
Hola.
thank God for this guy. So, Kgothatso, can you just let everybody know a little about yourself and like what's your journey all the way to this point? Please just go crazy.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Kgothatso, and yeah, basically, I'm here representing Exonumia today. But I'm a software developer. That's what I spend most of my day doing, working on open source apps and working also on a few projects of my own, and one of them being a VPN service that I'm trying to get off the ground. And yeah, the Bitcoin journey has started for me around 2017 consciously, but I've heard about Bitcoin since like 2015 and just ignored it for the longest time until 2017 happened. And I was like, this thing I ignored could have really helped me out. And now we're here.
Yeah, so like most of us, we kind of ignored it back then. But what made you make the dive? Was it just the massive price pump back then, and then everybody talking about it?
Yeah, honestly, for me, it was the price. Right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, the first instant around, I think, 2015 or 2016, yeah, I think 2015 to be specific, I had a bug bounty of Hacker One, and they offered to pay me in either PayPal or Bitcoin. And that was, I think, 1.3 Bitcoin versus the equivalent at the time. And I
yeah.
was like, what am I going to do with 1.3 Bitcoin? So I took the PayPal payout. And basically, 2017 happened, and I was like, shit, I could do a lot with Bitcoin. So, yeah, that price increase basically then was like, okay, maybe I should read up on this a little more. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing with regards to Bitcoin and the direction that things are moving. So I started reading up on it quite a lot. Read the Bitcoin Standard, and yeah, been reading ever since. Ended up even reading Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, and I was like, oh
Brilliant.
damn, yeah. And yeah, so the only sad thing about my reading was that my commute to work used to be 40 minutes before I started the whole reading process. So I got audiobooks and podcasts, and then it ended up being 2 hours because I was like, might as well, it's a 40-hour audiobook. There's no other way for me to finish Human Action if I don't walk to work and walk back. So
But
yeah,
also, how many times did you rewind that book? Because it's tough. It's a tough book.
yeah, on my third listen.
Yeah.
So I'm even getting friends to start it, and I'm like, okay, cool, you start it, and then I'll restart it with you, and then we'll discuss chapter by chapter until you get to the end. And I also realized that there's quite a lot to discover in the book, even when you're discussing it with someone else. Um, it also has ruined other books for me because I was like, oh, that book went back on its own premise. So I think Human Action set up a premise and kept to the premise for the full length of the book, or as far as my attention span goes, for the full length of the book.
So where do you think Bitcoin's going in the next
Mhm.
4 years? What do you think it's going to do?
Well, there's two things. There's where the community around Bitcoin is going, right? And I believe it's either going to be Nigeria or El Salvador for most places. And it's for personally, both are good because the Bitcoin community in Nigeria is doing very well, regardless of the ban, and the community in El Salvador is also doing great because of how much the government that side is embracing Bitcoin. And the president of El Salvador has the best Twitter presence. I don't even speak Spanish, but translating most of his tweets just to not miss out on anything.
Yeah.
And Yeah, so even Nigeria now, with their ban on Bitcoin, you get a lot of media. The mainstream media in Nigeria is very Bitcoin leaning. Big Brother Nigeria has episodes or days where they speak about Bitcoin quite a lot, and I'm like, if you didn't know that Bitcoin was banned in Nigeria, and someone said, watch this episode, you would never find out that Bitcoin was banned in Nigeria. So yeah, I wish South Africa either bans Bitcoin this year or embraces Bitcoin. But
What do you think will happen? Do you think they will ban it, or do you think they'll try and ban it? That's the real question.
yeah, think we more in line with what America is doing in terms of policies. So I don't think they will ban it just because America seems to be embracing Bitcoin a little more with the ETFs coming out. So I'm expecting an ETF soon, and hopefully get to put that on my tax-free savings account. Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, that's an interesting one with the tax-free savings accounts.
Well, I've
So
been waiting for
yeah,
that.
so you're saying in South Africa, if they do have a Bitcoin ETF, just for our listeners, if they have a Bitcoin ETF and it's a part of some provider with a tax-free savings account, if you put money in there and they have underlying value in that Bitcoin ETF, and that tracks the Bitcoin price, if you were to sell that, it wouldn't trigger CGT, wouldn't trigger capital
Capital
gains.
gain.
I didn't think of that, and I wonder if that's going to happen in America. I wonder if they have tax-free savings accounts.
Yeah, so Jameson Lopp has actually set up something similar to that, where they have a self-directed tax-free type savings account where, depending on how they do it, they can have Bitcoin as the asset, and they have to do it via a broker that tracks the price or something like that. And I think it's called self-directed individual something something. And yeah, I think he's done it for a few years. He has a blog about it as well, which we cannot do in South Africa because our laws are not that flexible. So, but when I tried looking at the tax-free savings account side in SA, an ETF was basically the quickest way for us to actually end up with Bitcoin in the tax-free savings account.
And shitcoins, what do you think is going to happen with them?
They're not going away, man. They're getting really, really strong. I actually think shitcoins are the best way any government trying to slow down Bitcoin can slow down Bitcoin. Like if a government today decides to buy a shit ton of shitcoin and get its market cap higher and higher, maybe even get it higher than the market cap of Bitcoin, and then drive the narrative into a different direction, because it's been easy to get people to adopt Bitcoin because also it has the biggest market cap in the space. But imagine what it will be like to stop someone from buying a shitcoin when that shitcoin also has the biggest market cap in the crypto space, right? So I don't think they're going away. So yeah, Bitcoiners really need to do some reading on how to actually engage people and highlight the more positive sides of Bitcoin, like it's decentralized. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. And yeah, the proof of work actually has a lot of signals you can pick up from it. Like how much energy are people willing to use so that they inflate the supply? I don't think we've had a currency that can give you a number that tells you, oh, this is how much energy people are willing to use so that they inflate a specific supply. The USD, it's getting inflated almost daily. and the energy to do that is close to zero, right?
Yeah.
And if it's the same for almost any other asset. So Bitcoin gives you the answer to the question, like, if you had a very valuable asset, how much energy would people spend to inflate it? And so it, for me, that's another reason to hold Bitcoin, because you will know, okay, cool, everyone else is trying to inflate it by using this much energy as well. So the shitcoins are not going away anytime soon, though.
No, they're not. And I wonder why they keep going. And I try to talk to a lot of people who, at work in life and they're in shitcoins. And I'm trying to understand why they are. But, because they see so much upside to them and because they're so cheap.
Yeah.
It's a cheap factor. So I wonder what's going to happen when the first big exchange globally, right? Whoever it is, probably Kraken, it definitely won't be Coinbase, it definitely won't be Binance because they live in shitcoins, but someone who changes their denomination to sats, and all of a sudden you see this denomination that's really cheap, and it changes the human's mindset. And maybe they get a lot of volume, extra volume from that in a 1 to 3 month period. And then the exchanges go, oh, we need to copy that. And that's the way the dominoes fall. And then all of a sudden people say, oh, Bitcoin's only, a couple of sats per dollar. And maybe that will drive up the doggy coin guys to drive them to this.
Well, I don't think it will be that easy, because people also buy into the young nature of all these shitcoins. Like, oh, Shiba is not more than a year old or around a year old. So if I buy in now, it has whatever upside. So I think the harder thing to drive across is that Bitcoin has a infinite upside, regardless of whatever the market cap is today. Like, it's close to an all-time high, but if you understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin, there's really no reason why it cannot grow by a factor of 10 in the next 5-10 years, right? And same can be said that there's no reason why Bitcoin cannot grow by a factor of 100. Yeah.
It's a very
Am
good
I
point.
coming in okay on your side? I see
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
was
all
doing
good.
the wheelie thing. So yeah. So I think that would be the harder thing to get across, right? Even
And
when the
Kgothatso,
denomination is in stats.
you know what? You make a very poignant point, and I actually can't debate that. Very well put. But your thoughts, like, what do you think governments? Do you think governments will try to take down shitcoins?
No,
Not.
they will hold hands with the shitcoins. They will print T-shirts and put a shitcoin on the T-shirt. Yeah. They will have flags, the South African flag on one side and the shitcoin flag on the other side, right? So the other thing is that the shitcoins have a budget to actually go out and speak with certain individuals in high places, right? So we know how greed works in positions of power.
Yes.
So you pay someone a good enough amount of money and you can have a conversation with them. And even in El Salvador, we already seen some people get meetings with the government, although not with the president per se, but high enough in the government to say, oh, actually shitcoins are actually moving in everywhere.
And why do you think they would work together? Do you think they'll work together? Do you think they'll do co-ops? Do you think something like ERC20 would be the underlying mechanism for CBDCs? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there's no CBDC without that is not using ERC20 already, right? Or in the development phase currently.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also there's also all these other platforms, all these other shitcoin platforms that emulate the ERC20 mechanisms. So I don't see a reason why they wouldn't, right? Because the aim is to inflate currency easily, and an ERC20 contract gives you that power.
Well put, man.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's move away from shitcoins. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about what we actually came here for, and let's talk about what you're doing. What you're
Mm-hmm.
doing for the betterment of mankind, in my opinion.
Cool.
Do you want to just give an outline of, like, firstly, like, what led you to doing Exonumia, and basically what is it?
Yeah. Okay. So, Exonumia is basically a platform or a website where we trying to translate literature that explains how Bitcoin works. And the reason I started it is because it's quite hard for me to talk about Bitcoin in my own community. Like, I'm in Mamelodi right now, right? And in my mother's house. So if I'm going to talk to my mother about Bitcoin, I'm not going to be able to use a lot of English. I can, he hears it, but I don't know how much of the conversation is going to stick, right? And so if I am...
So has she stacked any sats yet?
Sadly, no.
No.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, but the good news is I was trying to tell someone who was in the yard at the time that, you should check out Bitcoin and everything. And the guy was like, yo, I've already did Forex, so I'm not interested in Bitcoin. And my mother was like, no, Bitcoin is not like Forex. So at least she knows that there's a difference between Bitcoin and the Forex trade. But sadly, no matter how hard I've tried, she hasn't pulled the trigger on buying Bitcoin yet. And I'm going to keep on translating more and more content and having more conversations with her until she pulls the trigger. And yeah, so basically that, and expand that to my grandmother's house now. Right? How am I going to go to my grandmother's house and talk to her about Bitcoin? There I will not be able to even use English at all. And so my aim is to then translate as much literature into native African languages so that more and more people can go back to their households, their own homes, and talk about Bitcoin with their uncles, aunts, brothers, mothers, grandmothers, and everything, everyone else in the family, distant relatives, and get them to buy Bitcoin as well, and get them understanding that, oh, this is a decentralized currency, yada yada yada, all the good jazz that we rap about in the Bitcoin space, and get them to a point where they can differentiate between Bitcoin and all the other shitcoins. Because if you cannot understand the fundamentals, or if you cannot converse about the fundamentals, I don't see how you're going to talk about the whole inflation conversation, the whole someone actually wants to have the power to inflate the currency that you are holding at the time, or that you are using as your savings, right? So yeah, and that's why on the website we have quite a lot of books. Not a lot of books. We only have one book right now, which is Layered Money, and then we're gonna bring in more and more books. And Layered Money is more of an economics book, right?
Yeah,
But
great book.
yeah, and one thing I got out of it, I was like, there's really no book that talks about currency, the economics, in native African languages, right? The USD is basically a reserve asset for all other currencies across the world, but who is explaining that to people around the world, or to non-English speakers, to be specific? So yeah, that's where the Exonumia project comes together.
So when people go to your site, it says Exonumia.africa for everybody's sake.
But
I
in my
went
name
through
as
it.
well.
I went through it, and I love it. And first of all, so I saw it's run on a GitHub repo, right? And you got 6
Yes.
contributors right now.
Yeah, basically. But it may be more, because some translators do not have GitHub accounts.
Yeah, fair enough. And just for everybody's sake, that's just like an open source way for people to contribute content to a project. and the project could be a massive front-end, back-end development project, or it could be a literature project, just like Antonopoulos is doing with the mastering the Lightning Network. He's got that on a GitHub repo.
Yeah, even the Mastering Bitcoin book is there too.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm so glad you're following that model. And so what's kind of the plan? So you got 6 contributors now. What's the next plan to try and get more books, get more contributors? How do you see this thing evolving?
Oh yeah. Oh, can I give you the history on how I ended up on the GitHub repo before I answer that? And please repeat the question because I'm gonna forget it. Right. So initially, it was a wiki. Because wikis are also multilingual and everything like that. That's basically part of the reason why the homepage is a list of languages, because Wikipedia's homepage is a list of languages that Wikipedia is available in. Right? And so it was a wiki, WordPress database, on my own instance on DigitalOcean somewhere, right? And then I was helping someone else set up their own WordPress database and blah, 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 added them to the DigitalOcean account. And when I was done with them, they were like, oh, cool, we are done with this thing, so I can delete the instance. And then they deleted the instance that was also running the Exonumia project as well. And so all of those translations got wiped. And then I was like, wow, I need something more decentralized than 1DB that can be taken down by someone deleting an instance. So then I went and I set up the GitHub repo and got the translations we had done already and put them there. And that is way more decentralized because I already have it on 2 laptops, the GitHub repo, the other GitHub repo, and my own personal Git instance. So yeah, if you're ever doing a open source project, make sure that you can make it as decentralized as possible. And what was your question again?
Yeah, so I was asking like, what's the plan going forward with contributors and the roadmap to get more books?
Yeah, so the roadmap now, my biggest hurdle is building the community, right? Which is going to be very hard because the community is basically people that do not speak my language, my home language, maybe even not even English, right? So I want to get the platform to a point where it's not very dependent on me per se. Like I don't even have to interact with the translators. They get to the website, they read whatever they need to read, and then they do the translations if they are interested in doing the translations. But then the other side of it is also the funding side of it, right? And that's also part of the community, right? So if someone is trying to fund a specific language and they also don't speak English or whatever language, how are we going to get through to them? So yeah, I'm trying to see what can we do to build a community. In the crypto space, there are a lot of chat rooms, right? But most of these chat rooms are also in English. So what happens, or how would you set it up so that you have chat rooms that are multilingual and that are a home for people that are not necessarily English speakers to find each other? How are you going to find someone who speaks a vendor, and how are you going to talk to them about Bitcoin? Right? And then how are you going to moderate the chat room? I don't speak vendor. So anything can happen in that chat room if the space gets put together. So how would you moderate it? So yeah, so that is basically the plan, or the next step for me. And then with regards to more books, I love the Bitcoin space. Like I love it with all my heart because quite a lot of the books, quite a lot of the greatest books are open source already, right? As you were saying with the Mastering Lightning book being written on a GitHub repo. If ever we grow the community big enough, we could also translate it while it's being written, and the translation can track the actual draft copy and have it go out maybe even at the same time or something like that. So the next wave of books are going to be all the collection of open source books that are already available, and I just need to talk to all the authors and make sure they are happy with what we are doing, and and take it from there.
I think Saifedean, I mean, as far as I know, I was listening to Knut Svanholm the other day, and he's doing the Swedish version of the Bitcoin standard. So I don't know how the mechanisms work there.
Yeah.
But do you know?
Yeah, so with that, since it's not open source yet, right, it would have to be an agreement between me and them to say, okay, what do you guys need for us to do these translations? And we would need to meet their demands. Like if they have a certain price per language, also, this is where having a community comes in. We need to go back to your community and say, yo, here's a price for a language, right? And everyone needs to come out of that deal happy. So
I reckon after this week, try and get everybody to literally spam Saifedean like assholes. All of us give this project the rights to change this to African languages, and we figure out some grants for that. I don't know. What do you think?
No. I'm working on something, right? A system to be more exact, right? So, let me just tell you this, right? Let's be honest. This is a problem not in just the Bitcoin space, right? There's so much literature in the world. Why is there no system that allows people to crowdsource the rights to a book and then crowdsource the translation to that book? Right. So this is what I see the project growing into over time, or the platform growing into over time. So hopefully you get to see that in the next month or so, and hopefully you will see that with Saifedean's work, like the Bitcoin standard. I'm doing my best to make sure we have it there and make sure everyone is satisfied in the community, Saifedean, his publishers, and everyone else. Right? And
So what do you need help with?
I need more seconds in a minute. And also, if you can get load shedding to stop, please.
Well, as soon as the elections are done, I think load shedding is doubling.
Okay. So if that works, But secondly, I think donations would be very appreciated. So if you have a language you'd like to see translated, there's a donation page on the Exonumia website. And the other side of it is you would. I think you should also get to decide how you want to get it translated, because we have seen two ways of doing it. The first being professionally with a translation service, and the second being amateurs. And amateurs being native speakers of a language who will do it in their spare time. Right? I personally prefer the amateurs because it helps build a community. Right? With a translation service, I never know the person who actually did the translation. I talk with the head of the translation service, and then they do the translation. They send me back a translated copy, but I never know if the person who did the translation is willing to consume the orange pill or not, right? With amateurs, I can go as far as saying, yo, we're only working with translators who are willing to accept Bitcoin as payment. And slowly but surely growing the community. And
how much do you think it costs per book, per contributor? And just wait, take a step back. Do they prefer being paid in Bitcoin? I'm assuming so, if they're willing to take this task on, because you need the people who are passionate about it, right?
So there's levels to it. over the past year or so, I haven't been forcing anyone to take Bitcoin as payment. I've just been offering it as the option to take payment. In the same way that it happened with me, I was offered Bitcoin and I didn't take it. And then a year later, I'm like, yo, I should have taken the Bitcoin payment, right? So then, price-wise, most services and most people, depending on where you are, my brother's playing a saxophone. Can you give me like a minute or so?
Sure, man.
Knock knock.
All right, we're back.
Yeah. So cost-wise, the South African rates are like 80 cents per word. International rates start from 11 US cents per word, all the way up to 45 US cents per word. So then the bigger the book, the more money is required. Okay. And yeah, I think I've milked the South African rates as much as I could, as I can. But now we jumping more and more into the 11 cents per word. And inflation is happening, so I think there's going to be like 13 cents per word, depending on when the quotation gets made. So that's basically how the professionals are charging. And yeah, with the amateurs, you can negotiate, but generally it gets down to also what the professionals are charging as well.
Sure. It's quite complicated, eh?
Yeah, no. But I think with a strong enough community behind it, it becomes much easier to do because people will want to do it for ideological reasons, right? And then the money can come later. Same reason why we have Bitcoin open source contributors that technically were writing code for Bitcoin Core for free for years, and then as the community starts growing around it, they can do it full time and get supported for doing it full time. So I'm seeing a similar thing happening in the translation space, and I think I have to thank El Salvador because it highlighted that hey, there are a lot of non-English speakers around the world who would get to use or who would want to use Bitcoin, right? And so if you do not have translators, how are you going to bring Bitcoin to billions? Right? And I think that 3 months between El Salvador signing Bitcoin, signing the Bitcoin law, and then it becoming law in September the 7th, I saw quite a lot of translation work being done to get Spanish content, Spanish option on the wallets, and so on and so forth. So as the community grows, as the community starts believing that Bitcoin is taking over the world, whether we believe it's doing it this year or next year or today or next month, right? We just need to make sure that the community is ready.
And how many African languages are you aiming for?
As many African languages as they are. I want the person to get to the homepage and see all the flags, right?
Yeah.
And pick a flag, and then once they pick a flag, they see all the dialects, and then pick their specific dialect, and then read.
So how does the process go? Say there's Swahili, right? And there's the Bitcoin standard, and they've translated that on GitHub. What's the process from that point to try and get it into the hands of the actual reader? Will there be a front-end application for that, or will it go into print? What are you thinking?
So at the current moment, we're only doing the online website.
Yeah.
And I think that will be the deal with most offers, and because, as you're saying, how do we get it into the reader's hands? First and foremost, I'm not a Swahili speaker, so we would need someone in that side of the continent to fly the flag and get everyone reading the content. And also, this is where the growing the community, having a platform where the community can discover each other comes in. So we would know that, oh, this is a person that's flying the flag in for all the Swahili speakers, and we could just ping them to say, "Yo, now we have a new book. Can you make noise or do whatever it is that you want to do to get more eyes on the book?" Right?
Yeah.
And yeah, then when it comes to print, I think that is more complicated because you would need to actually have uh, a publisher who's willing to do the marketing, or who's able, not just willing, willing and able to do the marketing to push copies of the book. And then we would need to have a print agreement with the authors. Right? And what else? Oh yeah, but in the long term, this is my vision for the project, right? We all know the Wright brothers.
Hmm.
In the early 1900s, the bicycle mechanics decided to fly. They were like, okay, from what we've seen on bicycles, we understand that we can fly, right? From what we see, the airtime we got on a bicycle. And a few years later, the Model T happened, the Ford Model T happened, which basically industrialized cars, right? And when we fast forward more than 100 years later, it's not a rare occurrence to have a car in each and every household, right? But it's a rare occurrence to have a plane in each and every household. Uh, uh, and technically, I believe at least bicycle mechanics should have a plane, some version of a flying machine in their households, right? So, what is it that happened between the car that made it a vehicle that's in each and every household that didn't happen for the plane? What kept the plane from being a vehicle in each and every household? If bicycle mechanics were able to build the first airplane. So with Bitcoin, then, if we are fast forwarding 100 years from now, will we have a Bitcoin node in every household, a Bitcoin miner in every household? Or will every household own a Satoshi, right? If not, why will that not happen? If it does happen, why will it happen? Right. So, one, I believe if the knowledge is freely available, it's much more likely to happen 100 years from now that a Bitcoin node, Bitcoin miner, and a Satoshi is owned by each and every household across the African continent and the world, versus the opposite case where you have to book an airline ticket, or the airline ticket equivalent for Bitcoin 100 years from now for your
Yeah.
household to go on vacation, or what you might call it.
No, well said. And I kind of wonder, and I do believe that the Satoshi will be in everybody's household in the future. I
Mm-hmm.
just worry how that will come to be. And
Mm-hmm.
and I've worked with a lot of banks, a lot of fintechs in Africa, as I told you when we first chatted to each other. And I worry about the circumstance in which, you know, people in Africa hold that Bitcoin and
Yeah.
the intermediary between. And I'm just trying to think about how do we stop that. But obviously, there's a lot of education, and that's why you're so goddamn important.
Mm-hmm.
How do we educate the average consumer to hold Bitcoin for themselves and how to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest obstacle we face.
Totally.
Because otherwise it's just not worth it. There's no point
Mm-hmm.
to it all. There's no point
Yeah.
to it all. It'll just be another banking system on a new infrastructure, and we've
Mm-hmm.
created the whole nightmare once again.
Which would be even worse because now it's digital and much more easier for them to exploit.
Yeah, so I mean, apart from books and all that, what else do you think we can do? Because I believe Lightning, as I said to you,
Mm.
is the ring to rule them all. This is
Hmm.
this is something to bring free payments. Cool,
Yeah.
we can bring free payments to people. So now someone in South Africa can send their family in Zimbabwe 100 cents on the dollar, maybe
Yeah.
99 cents, and that's fine, right? It's not
Hmm.
80 cents anymore. It's not 70 cents anymore. But if they do that, what kind of wallet are they receiving it to? And how do we provide them the authority to not need anybody in between to let them control that money? How do
Yeah.
we go about that?
Yeah. The Lightning space is incredible, right? Uh, Everyone is really working on those problems. The Lightning Labs, LND, with LND, and is it Ank, the one that has the Phoenix wallet?
I'm not sure.
And the company that has Moon as well, right?
Yeah, those are the
Who?
Argentinians. I'm not too sure what their company is. I don't know if it's Ank, but I know they're from
Yeah, no,
Argentina.
I don't think it's Ank. The Argentinians are Moon or yeah, something like that, right? And it's really incredible. And I think the El Salvador guys, the Bitcoin Beach guys as well, right?
Yeah.
So each one of these companies have a different approach for the same problem. Right? The Bitcoin Beach guys are coming from a community perspective. Uh, they're like, all you need is at least 3 people, or I don't know what's their minimum, in a community to set up a custodial service that is going to be the community's Bitcoin bank. And
Yeah.
everyone's Lightning wallet in that community can then piggyback on that community's Bitcoin bank. If they need to piggyback, obviously the technology allows you to not need to piggyback, but obviously not everyone is going to be able to manage their own Lightning channels, right? And
Mm.
then you have Phoenix wallet, which has Table channels that piggyback off of the Phoenix Lightning node until you can what's the word for it, settle your channels, your Lightning channels on the main chain. So you will be transacting via the Lightning node, their Lightning node, and
Mm.
same thing for Moon wallet as well, right? And I think LND has shadow channels or something like that. Right? So personally, these are more technical conversations, right? So how do we then bridge that gap? Like,
Yeah, I
um,
think I think so. The initial problems, the short-term problems, will come
mhm,
when people need the fiat and they need the
mm,
Bitcoin, and
mhm,
the process in between. There's a lot of room for attack, and there's a
yeah,
lot of room for manipulation. But
yeah,
like you gave me a good point there earlier with Bitcoin Beach, because you got that closed system where everybody accepts Bitcoin and can pay Bitcoin. Maybe
mhm.
that's a much more secure system. So that's what we kind of need to grow in Africa, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Have you ever used the taxi?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I hate South African taxis. Okay.
have a bad
Uh,
route.
yeah. So basically, in the mornings, you are not allowed to have money that's not change.
Mm.
Right. You can't have 100 rand note, and you're gonna fight with them if you have a 200 rand note. Like you're not going where you're going anymore. You're just gonna be fighting at the taxi rank, right?
But also,
So
they don't want to do the whole snap scan or whatever because of
none
tax,
of
right?
that,
They don't
none
do
of
that
that. Yeah.
shit.
Right. So imagine a world where you could just use Lightning with them, right? And they don't have to struggle with change. You don't have to fight with them to get change
Mm,
because it's just an invoice with the exact amount.
mm,
And this extends to every other small business in the country that struggles with change because most small businesses don't have change on them, right? And I don't know how well the South African economy is going to do after it doesn't have to deal with change anymore, but my
yeah.
guess is it's going to boom because we lose a lot of time to waiting for change at restaurants,
Mm,
in taxis, buying from the local shop on the corner. It's much easier to say keep the change than to actually get change back if you wanted it. Yeah, I don't know how you use that as a selling point to people and say, oh, you don't have to deal with change anymore. But for me, that would be one of the better selling points.
I don't think, because I think you and I both believe Bitcoin's going up in price and quite considerably.
Yeah.
But I don't think you and I are here for that reason. We initially were, but we've come to understand there's bigger reasons than that. But nonetheless,
Yeah.
as it continues to do so, it's not hard to convince the standard taxi operator to do that. But they don't want to pay tax, first of all. So
no one wants to pay tax, first of all.
no, and so these guys, they might be a bit hesitant, but if they were to do that, they would then need rand for quite some time. Let's just assume the rand has got quite a little bit of few years ahead of it. Then they just need that other person to, their willing seller, to provide that for whatever reason. And that's why I think like peer-to-peer exchanges, especially on Lightning, like look at BISC now. There's fuck all liquidity in Africa. There's fuck all. But with Lightning, I think that's where, as soon as they understand that part, okay, I've got an asset that fights inflation completely, which is the most important thing to us all, and the most important thing to the lower LSM. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. And why we need to bring it to Africa, because every single person is getting fucked left, right, and center on inflation.
Yeah.
Now imagine these guys go, okay, I understand it, but now, I don't need to pay tax as well. I can do it anonymously.
So I've been with the taxis as well, while we're here. If they could buy petrol using Lightning, saying, oh, can I pay in Lightning as well, might be an easier conversation. You could use Lightning to pay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole thing. So they can use Bitcoin to buy something, or they can use rands and then on the other side that's converted to Bitcoin, right? And you need to provide in between. And I've been saying to guys in our group, so we're chatting to this Russian guy the other day, and he was able to change Lightning, LNBTC, to Vodacom airtime. And this is a Russian on the other side of the world, and he's figured that out, right?
Yes.
And it costs no transaction fees whatsoever. Now, think about that unit of account now that it's Vodacom airtime. That can be changed to electricity. That can be changed to a numerous amount of things.
Yeah.
So you got different units of account there, and all these things are happening so quickly within milliseconds. And why couldn't it happen the other way around? And we're so fucking close. We're so close to Bitcoin, LBDC being changed to ZAR, and vice versa. And then I believe that the big exchanges, you know, the big L, the big V, and all those guys, they're in big trouble at that point.
Yeah, no, most definitely, right? But I think all it takes is just one guy saying, you know what, today is the day I set the service up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if you're gonna do it today or tomorrow or the next week, or you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, to conclude on everything, Kgothatso, so what's your? Can you just elaborate a bit on like your long-term vision and what you want to do? Like, what do you want to be in 5 years with this project?
Oh yeah, so I told you the whole Wright brothers story. So, but personally, I would like to see human action translated as well. The whole book, make it available in as many African languages as possible. And yeah, for me, that would be when I'm like, oh, cool, the project really did a lot. And yeah, so the build up to human action is gonna be fun. Have the Bitcoin standard translated, have the fiat standard, which is coming out soon, translated as well, mastering Bitcoin, mastering Lightning, and the community growing around all the content, right? And I would like to see more and more non-English speaking content, right? And once we get to that point, right? Because here's the interesting thing: scammers have a lot of non-English speaking content. Listen to my mother playing the radio, right? They talking about Bitcoin already on Motsweding FM. And the scammers are talking about Bitcoin in Sesotho, in Sepedi, in Zulu, in Xhosa. And obviously, the sad reality is that they're scamming people. So ultimately, when you start talking to them about it, they are not interested anymore because they just got scammed, right? So why is it that scammers are more motivated than everyone else with regards to getting people onboarded onto either their service or Bitcoin itself, right? So for me, then I would like to hear more and more conversations around Bitcoin that are non-English speaking, and also, true, like preaching more positives than I'm just trying to get money out of you in the space. So yeah.
Well said, man. And how can someone like a corporate such as like Bitvice help? What could we do other than money? Like, what do you see in the long term with like corporate sponsors or those kind of long-term sponsors?
Yeah, so there is a lot of stuff, but I think it will also depend on what the company itself is doing, right?
Yeah.
So let's take Bitvice as an example, right? How are the non-English speakers accommodated on your own website, right? So moving forward, how are you localizing your own website so that you can accommodate more and more non-English speakers on your service, right? And obviously that extends further than just the homepage. That extends to support and so on and so forth. But most of it is overkill, obviously, because most people do speak English in South Africa. But for me, I'm like, at least get them through the doors, just so that a person understands that, oh, certain things work in a certain fashion, right? I went to the Bitvice homepage. You guys are big on self custody, right? And
Yeah.
so how are you going to preach that to non-English speakers? Because even to an English speaker, I'm like, what is self custody? And how are you going to bridge that gap between your customers who don't know what self-custody is and those that do know what self-custody is? And so yeah, basically for me that would be how the best way each and every company could help the space in the long term.
Well said, man. Well said. Well, I don't know. I think we'll be in touch and see how we can help. Actually, I definitely think we will. And I really believe in your projects. I think this is one of the most important projects I've ever seen in Africa. And
Cool.
I really hope you continue your work. And it's going to be hard, but FOMO will drive people. But just as long as we save people from the scams, because the scams in Africa are a cancerous thing, and we just got to do our best to educate everybody. So, I mean, on that point, where can people find you? Where can people chat to you? We'll obviously put your sites and definitely your donation page on our links. But what else? What else can you tell people?
Oh yeah. Preferably, everyone should follow the Exonumia social media pages, which should be in the description and everything, right? But if you'd like to see me shit post, my Twitter handle is
I'd love that.
440URPP. And yeah, you'll see me shit posting on a lot of stuff, like Kanye West. So I'll be quoting his lyrics a lot, and yeah, so. But preferably follow the Exonumia social media pages. That's where it's going to be professional. So yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome, man. Kgothatso, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And looking forward to chatting in the future and seeing when there's more books on your site, man.
No, most definitely.
Have a good one, dude. Cheers,
Cool. Chop.
Bye.